Hello, this is Dr. Patrick Porter. Welcome back to BrainTap Business Journal podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest. He's a world traveler. He's a father. He's a professional speaker. He's the founder of the Expert Speaker Institute. So if you're wondering, hey, can I get out there and speak? You're going to find out today how to do it, what to do, and some training to do that with. He's the world's only public speaking coach dedicated to functional and integrative medical professionals. So brain tappers out there, this is our guy. This is the guy that can teach you to take that high-level PhD conversation and make it available for corporate America or for your everyday client that's coming in. Majeed, which is like magic, will help us go from your best kept secret. You want to right now, most of you out there know that you are the best in your business, but nobody else knows that. So we need to get that out there and to give you a signature speech that's going to help you to attract and motivate your ideal client to come in. So Majeed, I'm going to get that right. Magic, welcome to the show. So tell us a little bit about what got you into this, what got you into helping people, especially in the area of functional and integrative medicine, because that's the world we've been playing in. And it's a relatively new field for chiropractors, natural medicine doctors, but they have a hard time explaining it. So tell us, how did you get into this to help them?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Porter. Thank you very much. It's Majeed like magic. I introduce myself like that because I believe as a speaker, it's our job to be unforgettable. And 12 years ago, I got into the professional speaking business, which I heard you can be a professional speaker, speak on a stage, they'll pay for your flight, they'll pay for your hotel, they'll even pay you money to give a speech. And I was very interested, how do I become a quote unquote motivational speaker? So I learned that business. And about 4 years ago, I decided to apply everything I learned of how to be a professional speaker after giving over 400 paid speaking engagements, after learning the business of traveling and the speaking circuit, making 6 figures onto 7 figures as a speaker. I decided to apply all of that to holistic medical practitioners. And the reason was because of a speech not a speech that I gave, but a speech a naturopathic doctor gave that changed my mother's life, therefore changing my whole family. And what happened was one day my mother was diagnosed bipolar, and her doctor says, that means you have to take lithium pills. So she came home and she showed us her lithium pills, and we all were a bit concerned. I mean, none of my family members are doctors, but we know what lithium is. It goes in batteries. It's not supposed to go in people. And she started taking these lithium pills and she became like a zombie. No more personality, no more ups and downs, but just like a zombie. And she would literally sit on the couch for hours and stare. And so we asked, when do you come off the lithium pills? And she says, oh, the doctor says I just keep taking them. So she starts getting these side effects. And the doctor says, oh, take these other pills for the side effects. And then she becomes constipated. So she starts taking enemas for the constipation. And then she gets these other side effects and more pills. And now she's got a whole bunch of pills every morning, every night she's taking pills. It got so bad, Dr. Porter, that I stopped calling her mom and I started calling her Vicky, which is her name, because in my mind, mom was gone. And this went on, unfortunately, for years. And we just thought that we lost mom. She's just now this pill popping zombie who doesn't do much with life anymore. So one day, my mother's friend walks into a coffee shop and sees a printed poster on the bulletin board that says free workshop, free presentation from the naturopathic doctor in town called The Gut-Brain Connection, How the Food You Eat Affects Your Mental Health. So my mother's friend goes to this workshop and she hears the words bipolar. And so she comes home and she calls my mom and she says, hey, I think maybe you should book an appointment with this doctor. So sure enough, my mother books an appointment with the doctor, and this doctor asks her a question that no other doctor has ever asked her. She's been to the hospital. She's seen psychiatrists and psychologists and the family doctor. Nobody ever asked her this one question, which is, what are you eating? So my mother said, well, I eat cheese and crackers, and we're a processed food family. Like, food for me is like microwave burritos, frozen pizzas, cinnamon toast crunch. We didn't do a whole lot of fruits and vegetables growing up. And so the doctor says, let's put you on a elimination diet. Let's get you on whole foods. And Dr. Porter, within weeks, mom was back. Complete health transformation. She goes back to her doctor, says, I think I'm good. I think maybe I don't need these lithium pills anymore. And the doctor says, whoa, 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 I don't know about that. Let's not jump to any conclusions. So eventually my mother was able to reduce the meds, and ultimately, still to this day, she's on some meds, but she's completely healed. She's completely back. She's back. So I call her mom now. And this happened 3 or 4 years ago. So my family was all very happy to have mom back. And then we were a bit upset, a bit pissed off, Dr. Porter, that nobody ever asked her this question. And how do we not know about this stuff? And where I grew up, it's like these alternative medicine practitioners are like crazy witch doctors. Like, the real doctors have the pills, and with the real doctors, right? So I started learning more and more about functional medicine and homeopaths and acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And I just went down the rabbit hole of all these ancient wisdoms, right? So I decided, what I could do is I could take all of the skills that I've developed as a speaker, as a professional who knows how to market himself, and support this community. So I've been speaking to audiences, teaching them how to use public speaking to grow their practice. And I've chosen to focus exclusively on helping holistic practitioners use public speaking to grow their business, because if it wasn't for that one presentation that my mother's friend went to, I don't know where Vicky or my mom would be right now. And I know that when one doctor makes one presentation, it can change the life of an entire family, because that's what happened for my family.
Right. Hey, the same thing happened with me. My mother went to an iridologist, and then she took us kids there. We got off of sugar and white flour when we were kids. We went from being the village idiots to being, super brains. I mean, we were honor roll students, the whole family. Everybody goes, oh, the Porters are just smart. No, the Porters didn't eat the junk. I tell people the first wave of fitness actually started in my hometown, Battle Creek, Michigan. Dr. Kellogg at 1890 started doing holistic medicine, where people would come in and they would look at the whole body. So I was very fortunate, the first health food stores in my hometown. So that's great. But one of the things, we're here with Majeed, and he's an expert at converting your knowledge into something that can be sold, but most importantly, get you the clients, the patients that are out there waiting for you that don't even know you exist, like this little flyer that's at the coffee shop. What I want to know is, right now, the biggest impact in the field of public speaking happens to be with these integrative medicine practitioners. It's all the rage out there. People want to know, hey, how do I keep my brain right? How do I keep my body right? How do I do this? Mental health is not going away. I mean, right now with what's happened over 2020, it's terrible. People need to get out there and shout from the rooftops about these alternative methods. Why do you think that is, that integrative health medical professionals are having a big impact on the public speaking circuit?
Well, we're in this thing called the global pandemic, and it's on everybody's mind. And some people are waiting for a pharmaceutical company to say that it's safe to go outside and shake hands again. And some people are saying there's never been a better time for me to take control of my own health right now. Whether it's fear or whether it's just the desire to be more healthy, people are curious. We're also seeing a change, I think, on a macro level of how marketing is done. And I think it used to be that companies would build a product and then they would advertise its features and its benefits. And so a doctor would say, the features of my program are, we're going to do lab tests, and we're going to take 12 weeks, and we're going to change your diet. That only goes so far. I think what the future of marketing is, and what we're seeing today, is that the future of marketing is education. And smart companies are educating, smart practitioners are educating, and education puts not only a new paradigm for people to make decisions in, but it also creates a bond between the educator and the student. So what we're seeing is that practitioners are educating and answering the questions that are on people's minds today, which is, how do I get healthier? How do I live longer? How do I be happier? And there's never been more distractions, and there's never been more things to stress out about in human history than we have today. And so the people who are wanting to reduce their stress and be more happy are looking for education. A lot of the because of the way that messages are funded by certain private companies, specifically pharmaceutical companies, there's these happy pills that companies are saying, are you depressed? Take this pill. And so some people are following that path, looking for their happiness in a pill. And then there are other people who are saying, I wonder if my body can create its own health and its own happiness. And so those people are looking to holistic practitioners who not only have the knowledge of how to create happiness and health, but also are practitioners of it. So they have the experience of taking people from a certain level of health and helping them heal themselves. And that's why in education, it's so important, not only to give the facts and the research, but also to tell stories that inspire people. Let me give you an example of a patient who came to me with depression and anxiety and overweight. And now 6 months later, they're happy, they're healthy, they're fit. And you tell that story in such a way that you can really feel the emotional transformation that that patient went through, such that when you hear that story, you go, wow, I can imagine myself taking that own transformation. And that's what I call the success story framework. It's one of the frameworks that we use in our signature speech methodology, which is designed for a practitioner to teach how they get results and how the body heals itself in such a way that their ideal client says, by the end of the speech, they go, wow, I want to hire this doctor and become their patient.
That's great. I know that if you're scared to get up there and speak and do things, we have a series in BrainTap that helps people do that. But what do you do when somebody doesn't feel like they don't feel confident in front of the groups or crowds? Do you have a methodology, or how do you coach people to get through that? Because that's the biggest step I find is some people go, I just want to do the doctorate, but they don't understand how valuable it could be for them to get up in front of a group. How do you coach them through that little bit of that mindset, I think it is, that people might have?
Yeah, great question, Dr. Porter. It's one of the most famous fears, the fear of public speaking. Jerry Seinfeld makes a joke. He says it's the number one fear. Number two is death. And the joke he makes is he say, the guy giving the eulogy would rather be the guy in the coffin. So it's very scary. And it's rooted in an evolutionary psychology where it says that I wish to be accepted by the pack. And if I'm not accepted by my tribe, my pack, I will have to fend for myself out with the saber-toothed tigers and the woolly mammoths, and that equals death in my brain. So rejection equals death. And that part of our psychology has survived the thousands or millions of years that our brains have been developing. So we still have that. I'll tell you what's most effective. After doing this for hundreds of students, after doing it even for myself, even though I'm a professional speaker, I have had and still have stage fright. There's what we do on a macro level and what we do on a tactical level. So in the macro level, what we do is we change your identity or your self-perception. And one of the truths of mindset is you can never outperform your self-perception. And if your self-perception or your identity is, I'm someone who I want to be speaking more, but I'm nervous. Or if my self-identity is, I'm not good enough to be the speaker, I'm not expert enough, I see all these other people and they deserve to be there. They have awards and they have degrees and they have experience, but I'm just me. And we have a bias called the familiarity bias that says, I've been hanging out with me all the time and I know I'm very flawed and I'm kind of making this stuff up as I go. I'm still trying to figure it out still today, right? So that's the self-perception. So what we do in my coaching work is we change the self-perception from who you were to who you are now and who you are becoming, which is an educator, a messenger, a way shower. And we redefine what an expert is. An expert is not necessarily the best in the world, but they're at least 2 steps ahead of the person that they're educating, right? So we do a little mindset and a little bit of self-perception work. The other thing we do tactically right in the moment is, yes, when it comes up and you're about to perform, that energy is going to come up. And a lot of people try to distract themselves with sugar, with caffeine, with alcohol, with smoking something, with creating some busyness and anxiety and stress and adrenaline, all to not sit with that energy that's coming. What we do is we teach you how to transmute that energy with your breath from nervousness to enthusiasm. And your body can barely tell the difference between anxiety and excitement. And so one of the things that you can say to yourself when you're feeling the nervousness is you can say, wow, I'm so excited. And instantly your body will use that energy as enthusiasm. So there's the self-perception, who is saying, I don't deserve or I don't believe that I'm worthy to be that speaker, and that will instigate some self-sabotage. And then there's the energy of the moment of performance that you want to actually utilize that quote unquote stage fright energy.
I know they can learn more at expertspeaker.com, but we're also going to get you've agreed before we went on the air to give us a training class, at least a preview to your training class that we can put on BrainTapAcademy.com to get them to learn a little bit more, because it's not just, hey, get up and give a talk. Don't just do this. There's a whole back into this, isn't there? About how you do it, what you do. What do you find is the best ways for holistic doctors to use this public speaking to build their business?
So there's a couple things to do. Just while we're on the topic, Dr. Porter, you and I were going to do a live training. So if you're listening, stay tuned, register for that live. If you're going to get the recording, get the recording. And we're also going to put up a mini class on the learning platform with BrainTap, and that's exclusively for BrainTap members. So make sure you get that. You can also get my book for free right now at expertspeakerbook.com. And I teach the 5 stages of growing your business with public speaking, which are audience, offer, speech, stages, and monetize. So if you go to expertspeakerbook.com, you'll get that PDF for free. And you can actually book a strategy call with me right now. What I do on my free strategy call is I help you with your positioning statement. And if we have time today, we'll talk about the world's best positioning statement formula, so that you can position yourself as the world's best service provider for your ideal client. So to get yourself a free strategy call with me right now, you go to expertspeaker.com/apply. So expertspeaker.com/apply. So Patrick, your question is, how can we use public speaking to grow the business, essentially? The first thing is to be perceived as the best in the world. And when I say the best in the world, is your ideal client, I'm talking to the practitioners now, your ideal client wants to work with the best for them. So, let's say they are a female executive dealing with a thyroid issue with lots of stress, and they've got 3 kids at home, and they want to be a great mom and run a great company and be in the best health of their life. Okay. You can be the functional medicine doctor of choice for women executive with kids, which would make you the best in the world for her, right? And if you happen to also like traveling, for example, you're the functional medicine doctor of choice for executive women with kids who love to travel, right? Even more specifically. And then they get on the phone with you and they say, wow, you get me more than anybody else. So when you're a public speaker, you have the opportunity to share your story through your bio in the written form, through how you explain your life story and how you got to be who you are. If you're listening to this interview so far, you know that Majeed has a mother with bipolar, and he's been a public speaker. That's like sort of my story in a nutshell that I've shared with you so far. If you heard Patrick's introduction of me, world traveling father is also part of my identity. I love traveling and I love my kids. So as a public speaker, you get to share your story and your positioning. You also are perceived as an expert. When you see someone, whether they're on camera, whether they're on stage, and you see a bunch of people listening to them and take notes, it's perceived that they're the leader or the expert. In this case, Dr. Porter could have interviewed anybody about public speaking. He chose me because we have a relationship, because I'm the world's only public speaking coach for holistic doctors. That's my positioning. Okay. So number 1 is positioning. Number 2 is audience. So as entrepreneurs, we need to get more clients, advertise, audience. Some people do that by Facebook ads. Some people do that by printing a billboard or a newspaper article. Some people do that by writing books and getting discovered on Amazon. I think the best way and the fastest way is public speaking and teaching to the right audience. So my formula for growing the business and attracting your ideal client is deliver the right speech to the right audience with the right offer. So let's go back to the example of the female executive with 2 kids who likes to travel. She's stressed out. She's overweight. She wants to be a good mom. She wants to run her company well, and she wants to be healthy. So imagine that you are the practitioner speaking at the Women's Executive Conference, and you're the keynote speaker, and your title of your talk is called How to Have It All, Be a Great Mom, Be a Great CEO, and Be in the Best Shape of Your Life. And your audience is taking notes, and they're hearing your stories, and they're hearing about the patients that you've worked with, and they're hearing about the one female CEO who was on a vacation to Disneyland when she got an offer to her company sold for $100 million, and she was feeding vegan health food while they were at Disneyland. And your audience member goes, wow, I want results like that. So it's the right speech with the right positioning to the right audience and the right offer. So I believe that a premium practitioner, a world-class practitioner, attracts the best clients who pay more than average. They pay premium fees. And one way to know if you're that practitioner is, are you discounting? If you're taking buy one, get one free discounts, and you're like, I'm going to compete with my competitors by being cheaper, what that tells me is that you're not differentiated and you're not attracting quote unquote high ticket or premium clients, because premium clients, they want to work with the best. They want to work with the best for them. So when you find who is my ideal client and you price yourself premium because you're the best in the world for them, they seek you out, they watch your speech, and they go, that's the one for me. So that's what I love helping practitioners do, is raise their fees, choose their ideal clients, and then educate audiences that have a high concentration of that ideal client, where those ideal clients watch that speech and say, I would pay double, triple, or 10 times market average prices to work with that practitioner because I know they can help me. So recap.
No, that's great. Yeah.
The recap is public speaking positions you as the expert, tells your story, and it gets you in front of the right audiences over a medium where you can accelerate trust from 0 to 100 faster than almost any other form of quote unquote advertising does.
Right. Before I had a marketing team, most of our practitioners know this, but I used to give, when I started in Phoenix, I went and did talks every night of the week. My job was because I didn't know how to write copy. I didn't know how to advertise. So I was doing these talks around town. It was in Phoenix at the time, and basically launched my franchise talking. I'm basically just talking for about 6 months. Then I had all the clients I needed. Then I could select when to talk. I didn't have to be so busy. Kind of broke into my social life. In fact, I'm very lucky my wife married me because I was dating her at the time, and we could never get a date because I would always, if I got a chance to talk in front of even 30 people, I was there doing it because I wanted to share my message. So it's a great way to do that. So how do you help them? Because there's a lot of noise out there even in functional medicine, right? Everybody does their own thing. Everybody has their own features, let's say, or they have their own benefits really that they're talking about. But how do you help them? Do you have a way to help them to figure out of the massive amount of things they can do? Because what happens with me is when I talk to some of our doctors, they're so good at so many things. By the time I'm done, my head's swimming and I don't really know what they can do because they've told me 15 things instead of when you're talking about positioning statement. But how do you help them to really hone in on their message so they get that right person?
Cool. I'm not surprised, Dr. Porter, that you grew your business that way. And I'm not surprised that you were as dedicated to do 7 nights a week because you're a man on a mission with a passion. Good for you. I'll tell you an opportunity that we have today that you didn't have when you were growing your business. And it dawned on me when Facebook Live first came out. I think this was maybe 3 years ago. I was in rural Quebec, which is near where I live here in Canada. And all of the entrepreneurs in the region came out to see my talk, which was 12 of them. They all knew each other. It's like rural. Okay. But I had an internet signal. So just as I'm about to go on, I go on Facebook app on my phone and I write the title of my speech, which was about networking. I said something like, your network is your net worth, ... Watch my speech. And I just stuck my phone, leaned up against a book. You know, this is my camera crew, is me and the book, right? And I pressed go. And I did the speech for an hour, and I came back and I stopped it. Luckily, the battery on my phone didn't die. It was one of my first ever Facebook Lives. 12 people in the audience, standing ovation, handshakes, good job, whatever. 500 people saw the Facebook Live in the first 60 minutes. And that's 3 years ago. How many more people have seen it since then? So the fact that we have an international broadcast studio in our pocket now has changed the game, which means there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people talking on the camera, right? So one of the tactics that allows us to cut through the noise is the world's best positioning. Can you position yourself as the world's best for your ideal client? So I'm going to give you now a quick framework that you can use, and it's called the world's best positioning statement. And the framework is the, for, who. 3 words. The, THE, for, FOR, who, WHO. I am the public speaking doctor. I'm the public speaking coach for holistic doctors who want to grow a 6- and 7-figure practice using public speaking. You might be the naturopathic doctor for pregnant women who don't want to use harmful medications during their pregnancy. You might be the functional medicine doctor for women executives who want to be a great mom and run a profitable company. The, for, who. So the way you cut through the noise and the way you get people from across the country or around the world reaching out to you is you choose a niche. I have a client was in Saudi Arabia, now in Illinois, he was in Saudi Arabia, now he's in the United Kingdom, Mohammed. He is leading the functional medicine revolution in the Middle East, and he's one of the world's only Islamic chiropractor, functional medicine dad who focuses on fathers who want to lose weight. Now, the fact that he's Islamic is obviously important to his ideal client. The fact that I love to travel and I love my kids is important to my ideal client who says, I see myself in you. And this is one of the keys about being a sought after personal brand, who's your ideal client sees something in you that they want for themselves. And that's why sharing part of who you are, not just the features and benefits of your program, but really sharing who you are through your story and your personal brand, attracts the ideal clients who say, I see something in you that I want in me too. This is why you need to be not just one of the challenges and one of the gifts of being an entrepreneur is you also need to be living proof of your work, right? And sharing your own journeys and your own challenges. And the doctor who's never had a challenge with their health is a lot harder to relate to than the doctor who's had their own health challenges and their own family challenges and concerns, that when they share openly, people know that they can be understood. And I'll give you an example. Dr. Casey Tramp out of Kansas City, Kansas, never thought to share her own health struggles as a doctor. She said, she was a client of mine. She said, I never really thought that my own challenges add any value to my patients. She was just educating them, just teaching them how the things worked. Well, one time she tells this pretty gruesome story when she had to get airlifted in a helicopter, which was related to her hormones. She shared it over a webinar. The next week, a client comes into her office and she says, I watched your webinar last week. My goodness, I never knew you went through that. Now I know that you understand what I'm going through. And this is how we sell with public speaking, is we sell with stories that are emotional, because a buyer buys based on emotion and justifies with logic. And everyone wants to be understood by their doctor, not just understood for what they're going through, but how they feel. And when you can tell a story that shows that you understand how your ideal patient feels, it builds trust, and trust is the prerequisite for the sale.
Well, that's great. I always tell the doctors, I say, whatever issue you went through, that's your origin story for your superpower. Now you can teach other people to go through that same origin story and teach them their superpower, because you have to have this, you have to have the solution, right? So it's there. I know that you might have already answered part of this, because that sounds like a good strategy, but what other strategies are working for your clients that you want to share with the BrainTap universe right now? I know we're going to do the workshop, so this isn't the end of what you can share, but what kind of tidbit can you tell us right now as far as a strategy that's working for your natural medicine doctors to get out there and speak?
So I'm going to share with you the joint venture webinar strategy. It's the number one strategy that I use, and it's the number one strategy that I recommend. And this is sort of like a build your own speaking circuit. And back in the day when I entered the public speaking, professional speaker industry, there was this concept called the speaking circuit. And I imagined a map of North America and like a railroad track, and like we're going to go to Chicago, and we're going to go to LA, and we're going to go to New York, and we're going to go to all these places on like a circuit, right? I'll see you on the speaking circuit, they say, right? And of course, you bump into your fellow speakers at this conference. Oh, I'll see you at that conference. And that was kind of the idea. And that's how it was back in the day. There would be these conferences, and you would reach out to the conference, because the conference is where the people are. The people are coming to the conference, so I want to go speak to the people. Now we live in a world where everybody has an audience. Anybody with a social media account has an audience, right? Now, some audiences are larger than others. Some audiences are more of a right fit for you. But for example, when I started, my speaking circuit was Rotary Club meetings. Rotary Club meetings are like 15 or 20 people that meet once a week, and there's a new speaker every week. So I reached out to all the Rotary Clubs and I say, hey, I'd like to be a guest speaker at your upcoming Rotary Club meeting. And sure enough, I would get a speaking opportunity right in front of a group of 15 people, sometimes in a church, sometimes in a government cafeteria, you know, not the fanciest, like everyone imagines the big stadium with the big screen and you want to be on the big stage. Well, yeah, you get there when you do a bunch of Rotary Clubs. Well, now I can speak to a Facebook group. I can speak on a podcast. I can speak on a webinar. So here's the joint venture webinar strategy. I'm actually doing this strategy right now, this exact moment. And so Dr. Porter has an audience of practitioners and has a community. That community exists in the form of, I imagine you probably have a Facebook group. I imagine you have an email list. I imagine you have subscribers to this podcast. So they are gathered in certain ways, and you, I'm sure, do a great job of creating community and interaction, and promoting and reminding people through email and other forms of the fact that we have this guest speaker coming up. And it's my job to prepare you to promote me as best possible. So I will provide you with a headshot, picture of me. I will provide you with a bio that is designed to attract my ideal client to listen to this interview. I will provide you with the social media links that can guide the listener to connect with me. I will provide you with free gifts that you can give to your listeners, like my free book, expertspeakerbook.com, or my free strategy session, expertspeaker.com/apply, or the other goodies that we're going to be offering your audience, the mini course and the live training we're going to do. So that adds value to your audience. And you get to say, thanks, Majeed, my audience is happy because this is valuable information. And I know that 98% of the listeners are not going to buy anything from me. And hopefully they're going to be happy that this was time well spent for them. And that's part of the gift of being an educator and being an expert, is I get to help lots of people who I never meet. And the 2% who hire me fund the whole operation for me to be able to afford to do this and not go broke. So those 2% of people, they book a call with me, they decide they're going to work with me, they hire me as their coach, and they go through my signature speech program and they build their own speeches. The joint venture part, Dr. Porter, is I give 20% of the revenue that I generate from these kinds of speeches to the person who invites me on their stage. I'm also, by the way, going to give a percentage to our mutual friend, Nikki Ballou, who put us in touch, because I'd like to share the value. And I think Nikki's going to introduce me to another good friend, I'm sure. And so You win financially. And I know that you're not having me on here today to make money, but one of the guys who sends me a lot of clients, he donates it all to a village in Africa. But I always, as a rule, if I'm going to speak on someone else's stage, I'm going to share the revenue. That's just good money juju for me. So I can reach out to, there's a guy called Uli Iserlo. He makes websites exclusively for holistic doctors. He's a great marketer. He's got thousands of people on his list. I'm going to ask Uli, hey, Uli, would you like me to provide a free training called How to Grow Your Business with Public Speaking? I'll give you 20% of any sales that I make. Again, that's not the selling point of having me on someone else's stage, is that they're going to make money from me, but it's a joint venture. In that's why I call it joint venture webinar strategy. So here's how I practice this. I have a list of about 50 different doctor communities that I'll reach out to, and I'll say, would you like a free training on public speaking? They'll say yes. I'll say, great. Here's how you can help promote it to get the right people. Here's the picture. Here's the headshot. Here's the bio. Okay. So the same thing I recommend to a practitioner. Now, let's say you're a functional medicine doctor in Vermont. Go to the dentist and say to the dentist, hey, you've got a list of patients. Would you like to email your list of patients and say there's a free how to lose weight, be healthy, and reset your metabolism free training online? Go to the Rotary Club. Go to the Women's in Business Club, go to the Chambers of Commerce. And for each one of them, you help them promote the free talk. Now, here's the big insight I learned, Dr. Porter, as a professional speaker. I thought the money to be made in the speaking business was selling keynote speeches. So I was promoting myself as a speaker, marketing myself as a speaker to conferences that had budgets for professional speakers, charging anywhere between $1,000 and $10,000 for a keynote. What I learned when I was doing my taxes. I was adding up all of my income from the year, submitting my taxes to my accountant, and I realized I was getting coaching clients, training clients, consulting clients, and every single client that I got that was not a professional speaking fee revenue, but service revenues, all of my service revenue clients were coming from speeches. That's how they discovered me. So I realized by accident, I have a marketing strategy that is working. It's called do speeches. And when people come up to me afterwards and say, do you do coaching? Sure. Do you do consulting? Yes. And so I realized that speaking is a very powerful marketing platform. And in order to generate revenues, I stopped focusing on charging for the speech and I started speaking for free. And then I take it even a step further. Not only do I speak for free, I will pay someone. If I'm generating revenues from your stage, I'm happy to share it. So that's the strategy I recommend, is the build your own speaking circuit. Again, focused on the first step, which is identifying who's your ideal client. And then when you're saying, where should I speak? You want to speak to audiences that have a high concentration of ideal clients. So if you work with pregnant women, what's your speaking circuit going to be? Speak at the midwives group, speak at the OBGYNs association, speak at the mommies and daddies group, because mommies and daddies tend to have more babies, right? Mm-hmm. So if you work with pregnant women, your speaking circuit will be defined by that ideal client avatar. So choose your client first, your ideal client. That's going to inform what are the right stages to speak on.
Right. Somebody once asked me, what do I charge for a speech? And I told him, I said, well, if you want to just pay me right outright, it's $15,000. But if you have a big enough group, I'll go, because I'll make $45,000. You don't have to pay me anything.
Yeah.
As long as I have 100 people in the room or 200 people in the room, I know I'm going to make between $45,000 and $60,000. So it's like, and that's only then so these doctors, if they can think of what's the lifetime value of that patient, because we have wellness practitioners. These are not just people seeing people when they're sick. I think that you're right in line with like what happened with your mother. Our doctors are more involved with keeping them well. So that means they're going to come and see you maybe on a monthly basis. It's not just critical care. So there's a lot going in there. So did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to. One of our clients called Dr. Lucy never gave a talk before. And she gave a talk to a women's group with 6 people. Okay. So there's a little bit of ego in as a speaker, like you want the, hundreds of people screaming your name and standing ovations. So like speaking to 6 people, sometimes speakers are like, gee whiz, sorry, there's not more people here. Geez, it's just us, right? She made $200,000. Now I'm going to tell you how. Out of the 6 people, 4 of them booked a call with her. Out of the 4 calls, 3 signed up to be a patient. That package for them is $10,000. So that's 30,000. So where's the 200? I asked her, on average, when you get a new patient, how many people do you think they refer to you over the life of their time with you? Because this is like a maintenance program. They're going to stay with her. She says, probably on average, the average person refers 3 or 4 other people. So we did the math on what's the lifetime value of the revenue from that one speech, and we got to the number $200,000. Now, that also includes like a lot of service and a lot of time. But when you have in your brain, when I speak to 6 people, I make $200,000, it really changes your approach to marketing your services, because there are so many complicated things that entrepreneurs and practitioners are doing now to avoid the fear of rejection that comes from picking up the phone and saying, hey, can I speak at your women's executive group? We're building click funnels, we're building tripwires, we're building lead magnets, we're building nurture sequences and Facebook retargeting pixels and all these things to avoid the one phone call that says, hey, I noticed you got a group. I'd love to be a guest expert and speak. By the way, I give my best scripts for how to reach out and ask for the speech. I give it away in my book, Expert Speaker, which you can download at expertspeakerbook.com. My philosophy, Dr. Porter, is I give away all my good stuff for free in the book. That way, if you can take it and use it, fantastic, please, by all means, because my ideal client also hires the author of that book. So if you're the kind of person who hires a coach, then book a strategy call with me at expertspeaker.com/apply. If you're the kind of person who can just take a book and gain from it and go for it, please do, because I want you out there giving your talks to help more people. So Dr. Erin Lucy's life has changed forever because of this one talk. And here's how she got the talk. She used our stage getting campaign script, which again, I give away in the book. So the stage getting campaign is how you identify what stages you want to speak on and what to do and say to get booked. She booked 1 hour on her calendar, 1 hour to make these quote unquote outreach calls. Within 20 minutes, she had 3 speaking engagements. Okay. So you can wait years and years. And this is what I used to do, Dr. Porter, is I used to think that the only way you get speaking engagements is that you're so amazing that someone discovers you and your phone rings. So I literally thought the strategy to get speaking engagements was to become more amazing. So I wrote a book to be a best-selling author, and I won an award to be an award-winning entrepreneur, and I served on a board of directors of a nonprofit so I can be so fancy on paper that someone's going to discover me and call me. Little did I know that there is a way to identify, that's the group I want to speak to, that's the person I need to talk to, that's the question I need to ask, and then I'm speaking. When I realized this, my whole business changed from thinking that speaking engagements come when you're lucky and you're a superstar that you get discovered, to the absolute certainty in knowing that getting speeches is a completely predictable science, that I can get as many speeches as I want and I can calculate what my revenue is going to be into the future. That is a game-changing, calming effect that goes from an anxiety-ridden business to a predictable revenue business. And little did I know that speaking to generate income is a predictable revenue science.
Yeah, we have a program going on right now, it's in Southern California now, and also it's going into Florida. We call it Wake Up. They're Wake Up biohacking events, and we look for speakers. And the biggest issue they have is finding speakers. So they're always calling me, and I introduce them to our doctors. Now, if our doctors took your training, they wouldn't have to be, people are looking right now. There's actually a statistic that shows there's more speeches available than there are people to give those speeches. So they're scrambling to do it. So let's get it done. Also, I am a firm believer in the bigger isn't better. In fact, for us, we get asked to do a lot of big shows, and I prefer 200 people shows better than 2,000 people shows. And the main reason is I want to be able to make connection with them. One event, I still remember our CEO kind of getting on me because I go to this event in New York when we could go to New York and do things. And it was only usually about 25, 30 people. But that event every time puts me in touch with somebody. And just last year before COVID, it was like a miracle happened. We meet this guy. He's a nutritionist to the stars. Most people know him that'll watch this. His name is Daryl Joffrey. He wrote the book, Get Off Your Acid. And we became friends because he bought the system, our system. He introduces me to a guy who does documentaries, puts me in the documentary. Now that documentary went gangbusters. Now every time we get together, like last week, I made $60,000 on a phone call that took me no more than 45 minutes. So because this guy has the group, I mean, he's got millions of people. When he says, hey, we're going to have Dr. Porter on for a Q&A about BrainTap, you heard about it in the movie Live Long, Live Better, and then these people come out. But that would have never happened if I would have said, hey, Bob, how many people you got at that meeting? Oh, you only have 25? I'm not going. I always believe that whoever shows up, it's like a divine appointment. I'm supposed to be there talking at that moment to that group because something magical is going to happen. And I can honestly say, if they open their mind to that possibility, it will happen. It always happens for me. I mean, it's like magic happens when you're ready to be, to see it, to be prepared for it. So I love that. I love that messaging. So what else do you want to talk about on that? And then we'll go on to our next bit here.
Well, that certainty and conviction is so compelling, Dr. Porter. And I'll tell you one of my ways of getting speaking opportunities when there were none. Back when I used to call up conferences, they would say, oh, we have all of our speakers already. So I would deploy what I call the official backup speaker strategy. And I would say this. I would say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll offer you an insurance policy because I know as someone who runs events, someone's going to cancel at the last minute. It just always happens. So here's what I'll do. I'll show up. I'll be ready to take the stage. I'll have a polished keynote ready to perform. All that I ask is that you cover my admission to the conference, and I will be your official backup speaker. What do you say? 9 times out of 10, they say, sure, why not? And what they get from me is they get that I am dedicated to this conference. I'm dedicated to this community. I will be there no matter what. Half the time they find something. Would you do a breakout session? Hey, would you do a morning thing we're doing? I often find they ask me to MC at the last minute. So I'm there with certainty and dedication. So it's now easier than ever before because a lot of this stuff's online. And this is all my conviction today is based on the certainty that I know who my ideal client is. And I know, when I see that there's a health and wellness practitioner conference, I say, I'm committed. I'll be there. How can I help? By the way, if you're listening and you're listening to the audio, you may have heard this sound. That's the click of my pen. And that sound happened as soon as I heard the term wake up biohacking needs more speakers. I wrote that down. And as soon as we hit stop recording, I'm going to ask Dr. Porter to tell me more about this because I want to get my clients who are doctors speaking on that conference. And I want to be speaking on that conference too. So I'm always listening for opportunities to speak. And when you know that they are everywhere, and there's never been more opportunities to speak than today, and there will be even more opportunities to speak in the future because we're all walking around with our international broadcast studios. You notice it when you know who your audience is. And that's a decision of choosing who's your ideal client. And then you can start to say, where are those people gathering?
Awesome. Now, one of the things as we start to wrap up here, what do you think holds most practitioners back? I mean, this is such a growth strategy. What do you think holds them back from getting out there in the public and speaking?
A couple things. The fear of rejection I mentioned, which is the basis for the fear of public speaking. And not having the skill of public speaking. Luckily, public speaking is a learnable skill. And it's something that I teach. It's a small part of what I do. What I do with my clients is around messaging, positioning, marketing, storytelling, and delivering the speech is one of those pieces. That's a practicable, learnable skill. So if you're listening, imagine giving yourself a scale of 1 to 10 on how good are you at speaking. 10 is a total maestro, and 1 is a complete blunder. Give yourself a number right now. Okay. Now imagine yourself becoming a 10. how does that change your confidence? How does that change your perception in your market, in your industry, being seen as a leader? When you can articulate something clearly, it is implied that you have mastery of that topic. When you can communicate something with conviction and passion and clarity, you give people the confidence they need to do business with you. So that's a learnable skill, something I teach. I'm happy to teach you. There's the skill of speaking, and then there's the tactics and strategy, which quite frankly took me many, many years. And I continue to refine my approach in how do I get the right speech to the right audience consistently and efficiently to increase my impact and my income. And that's a matter of following a proven plan. I map out that proven plan step by step in my book, expertspeakerbook.com. You can download it for free. So not having a plan is where most people are typically at right now, and they're feeling overwhelmed. Where do I even begin? And secondly is they're not at their 10 out of 10 for public speaking skill. They know that, or at least their perception of how good they are on stage. They might even be telling themselves over and over, and this is a mindset thing. When you say to yourself, I'm not good at public speaking, I don't like public speaking. When you tell yourself that, you're robbing yourself of the self-perception that actually I'm a pretty good teacher. Actually, I'm really passionate about this. The challenge that a lot of doctors have, a lot of practitioners, is they're so dang smart. And if you're a doctor, I know one thing about you. I know you love to learn, because people who don't love to learn just don't make it through those programs, right? So you love to learn and you assume your audience does too. So what do you do when you have an opportunity to give a presentation? You teach them like a professor of one of your courses, and you're so excited about the science and the research and how the cell membranes work and how the chemistry works. And a lot of your patients are thinking to themselves, I just want to know, does this thing work? And does it work for me? And is it going to help me get my goal? And so the big shift in presentation styles I see happening when before and after people work with me is they go from teaching facts to telling stories. And one of our truths we share is that facts tell, stories sell. And we need to sell. And as practitioners, you're very good at your craft. You've studied your craft, you practice your craft, but that's not your job. That's the reward for doing your job. Practicing medicine, practicing healing is the reward for doing your job. So what's your real job? Your real job is selling and marketing your services. That's your real job. As an entrepreneur, as a practitioner, your real job is selling and marketing your services, which I do by teaching and presenting. And I recommend you do the same because I think it's one of the most effective ways to do it. You get to be rewarded by working with patients. That's the reward. Now, a lot of practitioners, a lot of entrepreneurs say, I just want to do the thing that I'm good at, and I want someone else to sell and market me. And that works for some people. But I would never skip the step. I would never advise you to skip the step to master the art of selling and marketing, which is the application of psychology and communication. And it's the art of helping people make the right decisions. That's my definition of sales, is helping people make the decision that's right for them. In the case of hiring you to be their doctor, they're choosing between 4 options: do nothing, do it themselves, spend money on a different solution, or hire you. And you get to illuminate those 4 paths for them. Here's what happens if you do nothing and things get worse. Here's what happens if you try to heal yourself by watching YouTube videos and reading books and trying to figure it out yourself. Here's what happens when you spend a lot of money on this other thing that's probably not very good for you. And here's what happens when you work with me. And you can illuminate those 4 paths with stories. So what's the challenge? Your question was, what are the mistakes and what are the challenges? The fear of public speaking, the not knowing where to start, and not realizing that your real job is selling and marketing your services. The reward for doing that is you get to be a practitioner.
All right, there you go. Majeed is sharing with us how he went from 0 to hero in the speaking industry. And you can go pick up his book, expertspeakerbook.com. I've already downloaded it. It's wonderful. Read it, learn about it. And I've been speaking for 30 years, but there were things in there I need to learn. I mean, there's something for everyone, and we want to be lifetime learners. So, don't think you know it all. Go to expertspeakers.com/apply, because you can book a strategy meeting. Now, how much is that strategy meeting, by the way?
It's complimentary.
It's complimentary, which means he's going to do that for you on his dime. So ask all the questions, load up his questions, download his book, ask some questions, get it there, schedule that meeting. Expertspeaker.com is his website. We want to know more. I'm going to give you a rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 5 questions about what they've learned today. I just want you to give me as quick of an answer as possible so they understand. We're kind of do a little review here, and anything you want to do to wrap it up so they understand these 5 components. Number 1, tell us why it's important that they position themselves as the world's best.
Because the best patients, the best clients want to work with the best. They don't want to work with the cheapest. Those are not the best clients. The best clients want to work with the best, and it's on you to show them how you are the best for them.
There's a new business model out there. It's to make money speaking. Tell us a little bit about why that's important for these practitioners.
Yeah, the old model for making money speaking is sell your speech to someone who has a fee for a speaker. That represents less than 1% of the opportunities to speak. The other 99.9% of opportunities to speak for free and have an offer. The offer might be download my book or book a free call, or it might be buy my course, but that's the new model. And that's what I recommend for practitioners is speak and then invite people to a next step.
I know this is in your book, but what can you tell us about the success story framework so they understand what they're going to get when they download that book?
The success story framework is a way of telling a story that lets the ideal client imagine hiring you and getting great results. So I'll tell you my success story framework is, I'll give an example. Dr. Casey Tramp came to me and said, Majeed, I'd like to do webinars, but I just don't know where to start. The technology is confusing. I don't know what to say. So she hired me. We worked through the signature speech model. Now she has a webinar that gets dozens, if not over 100 people signing up to watch her live. At the end, she's making sales every single webinar, $5,000 each. She'll make 3 or 4 sales every time. So imagine being paid $15,000 to $20,000 per webinar to attract patients into your client. Now she says, I don't do any other marketing and I enjoy doing my webinars from home or even while I'm traveling with my kids. So that's the power of having one signature speech and one webinar model that works. So the framework I just used, Dr. Porter, is I told about my client who had a problem. That problem was, I want to do webinars, but I don't know how. Then she got the result and told me, great, Majeed, now I'm making lots of money and I'm working from home and traveling even with my kids and doing webinars while I'm traveling. So we get to see a before and after. So if you use the same success story framework for weight loss, for example, patient comes in and says, Doc, I've tried everything. I've got these extra 30 pounds. They just won't go. They hired the doctor. They said, man, I'm down 30 pounds. I'm turning heads on the street. I'm feeling sexy. I've got more energy than ever before. And I didn't even think it was possible. And it's all thanks to you. And when you tell a story like that, your audience imagines hiring you and having that being that character in the story, getting that result and going, I want that for me. Awesome. That's the success story frame.
Yeah. So first of all, re-explain again positioning statement so they understand what that is. But what is the world's best positioning statement? So they understand they have to grasp that, because that's how they're going to attract that
right.
client, right?
Right. So if they don't know your positioning, then you're a commodity. And commodities compete on price. Like a bale of corn is a bale of corn is a bale of corn. We're competing on pennies and price, right? You don't want to be the commodity. You don't want to be just another doctor and I can't tell the difference. Because what happens when you can't tell the difference across the options? You just choose the cheapest one, right? But if there's only one that's differentiated and you go, that's the one for me, that's the world's best for me, then you charge whatever you want because your ideal client says, I don't even want any other practitioner. I want that one. So the framework is the for who? The chiropractor for athletes who run long distances and are vegetarian, right? The for who. So find your ideal client. And by the way, this is something I do for free on the call. So when you book your call with me at expertspeaker.com/apply, we're going to do this because I want you to have that. It's a very empowering thing to have your positioning statement. And you might be thinking, yeah, but I work with executive women's and I work with young men and I work with athletes and I work with kids. Well, you can't market effectively to all of them. You can market effectively to one, and you can make exceptions to the, I only work, if you say I work with CEO women, well, are you allowed to work with men? Of course you are. And the men who come to you are going to know that you are the best for CEO women, and they're still going to want to work with you.
And just to reiterate the statement, we make decisions with emotion, but how does that go? The emotion and logic? What is it? Tell us again how that works. We make a decision
with the emotion and we justify with logic. So we do need to supply them with the logic that makes it make sense.
Okay. So tell us a little bit I know that your book probably shares many different ways to make the emotional connection. They'll get those when they download it, but give us one that seems to work best for you when you make an emotional connection with your audience, so they understand that component.
Yeah, a lot of people have a hard time making an investment in themselves, but they will make an investment that serves other people. So if I ask the question in a sales call, if you don't do anything about this problem, who else besides you will be affected? Will this affect your kids? Will this affect your spouse? How will it affect your kids? How will it affect your spouse? And so they'll start to connect with the emotion of the impact of the problem. We do that in speeches through stories. When we talk about the problem, we talk about the pain. And your ideal client is in pain right now, but they're not in enough pain to do something about it. And they've gotten very good at convincing themselves that it's bad, but it's not that bad. And until we sort of drive the nail a little bit deeper and let them feel that pain a little bit more, until they feel the pain more, they're probably not going to do anything. So we tell a story that allows them to be in touch with the pain of not solving the problem and imagine it gets worse. And then in the sales conversation, we ask them questions like, if we don't do anything about this, what's the impact? What's the impact on you? What's the impact on people around you? Now, everyone needs to justify the expense. So if you have a $10,000 program and they're used to paying $150 per session with their last practitioner, they're going, how does this make any sense? This doesn't make sense, right? So you help them justify it. For a business owner, you'd say, if you didn't have this problem anymore and you had the energy you're talking about having and you felt powerful in your body, how much more sales do you think you would make in a given month? Do you think you'd make an extra $5,000 in sales a month? So if that's $5,000 a month, that's $60,000 a year, that's $300,000 in 5 years. What do you think is a fair investment today to make an extra $300,000 over the next 5 years? That's a form of justifying with logic. So we need to help them make sense of it. A lot of my practitioners, they'll say, how much does a typical divorce cost? $200,000, $300,000. That's just the lawyer fees. Now you split the assets and everything else. If you don't solve this health problem, how much longer do you think your marriage is going to last? And now $10,000 sounds pretty small compared to the potential consequences of not solving the problem. So I believe it's our responsibility as practitioners and entrepreneurs to help. It's not a pressure thing. It's not deception. It's helping them see clearly what they have been avoiding being honest with themselves about. What is the real consequence of doing nothing? Because yes, I realize you're not dying or dead today. And yes, you could go a couple more days, but let's imagine a few years into the future and this problem doesn't solve itself. What might happen? And getting them in touch with that and then helping them justify logically the investment of money and time to get the health transformation helps them justify the decision that they already made in their mind. I'm making the decision emotionally, but in order to feel good about it later, I have to have the logical structure of why this makes sense.
That's great. So we're here with Majeed. He's giving us the breakdown on the Expert Speaker Institute. You can check him out at expertspeaker.com, but remember, you can go to expertspeakerbook.com. Sorry, we'll make that's in the notes of the section. You can also set up a time to speak with Majeed. He said he would go over your positioning statement with you, tell you what's going on. So the cost is nothing. He's investing his time in you to make informed decisions. So please pick up the phone, give him a call. Let's get these things set up. Go to the website, go to the apply button, apply for that conversation. Any parting words for BrainTap Nation before we leave?
Yes, one of my mentors gave me this quick phrase. He says, to speak more, speak more. The more you speak, the more you speak. And to begin, begin. There's only now, there's only today. So make the decision that if you want to be a speaker and serve your audience and have a bigger impact on the people who are gifting you with their attention and paying attention, then begin. To begin, begin. So begin by a conversation with me, expertspeaker.com/apply. Begin by downloading and reading the book, expertspeakerbook.com, and begin where you're at. Now, you have knowledge and wisdom that can help people and save lives. And that one person who gave that one presentation to my mother's friend changed the life of my mother, which changed the lives of our family. I started to learn what organic foods were. I started to learn all the poison that was in all the stuff that we were eating. And it's changed how I raised my children. And that was one presentation 4 years ago. So give that presentation, change lives. You have the knowledge in you right now. It's not just your privilege, it's your responsibility.
Right. And those at BrainTap Nation probably remember one of the first talks you heard me give was I start the talk usually with, you're in this audience today. You have no idea the lives are going to change when you leave here. My dad was sitting just like you in 1974. Alcoholic, couldn't relax. He learned one key technique. He's now changed millions of lives.
Wow.
Because he's sitting just like you and he's transforming people's lives. That's the key, is you got to tune them in to what you want them to do. You want them to take action. I was looking for franchisees at the time. So I would tell my franchisees, if somebody asks you to speak, there's not even a question. Anytime, anywhere, to anyone.
Yes.
And just one last story, and then we're going to stop the call. But I was in Pennsylvania at a franchisee's daughter's wedding. We're waiting around 45 minutes past the time it's supposed to start. Everybody's milling around. You saw there's something going on there. And so Cynthia came over to me. My wife's name's Cynthia too. Came to my wife, who's a minister, but she's not an acting minister. She did that. Got a degree in comparative religions. And she said, Cynthia, I need you to get up and perform the ceremony. The minister didn't show up. And she goes, oh, I'm not licensed here. I can't do that. But Patrick said, anytime you ask anybody to speak, you do it. So I'm not a minister, but I got up and gave I gave the presentation of a wedding. And it was funny because I just ad-libbed, I saw Princess Bride, so I was able to add in some things. and so I was doing something. I remember saying, now the power invested me by Marnie and Michael. I now pronounce you man and wife. Nobody caught that. I mean, I was slipping in so many different things and afterwards I said, you're not really married. You've got to go get really married. But I was having people come to me, that was a beautiful wedding. That was awesome, whatever. It's like, just get up and and I've never married anybody, but now, just so you know out there, I am an ordained Dudist priest. If you've ever seen The Big Lebowski, you can go online for $99. I have a degree. I have a certificate from there saying I'm a Dudist priest, so I can perform funerals and weddings. So now I'm a licensed practitioner, so I can do those things. But you got to be ready, and you always have a story around it too. So just think, every time you get up in front of that audience, you could be tapping into that one key client, that patient, or it could be an opportunity out there that you don't even know is going on. So look at life as an adventure and get up there and start speaking. I love that advice.
Well, I like to say you don't have to get ready when you stay ready. And so be ready. And as soon as you're ready, the opportunities start coming to you, and just say yes, like you're saying. Dr. Porter, I love what you're doing here with BrainTap Nation. I'm so astounded with what you've built. I'm honored to be a part of your education academy. I'm excited to have that little mini course available to your audience, and I'm excited to be doing our live training coming soon. So thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Thank you, Majeed. And yes, we're going to have him back, and please stay tuned. Look at your emails, check your social media posts. We're going to be promoting out. It's our weekly HCP training, which means healthcare providers. You don't have to be a doctor to be on there. Anyone out there that wants to learn how to speak in public, you can be on that call, learning these technologies and these techniques to help people, because they don't know you a lot. They don't know who you are. You might have the greatest technique on earth, but if you don't get out there and share that, then no one else is going to share it as well as you do. So again, Majeed, thank you for being here. We look forward to continuing to get your word out, teaching people. And I love that you're helping out functional neurologists and functional medicine doctors who they're the brains of the industry, but sometimes they forget that they need to get out there and share it at a physical level so that people can actually know that they're individuals instead of these scientists behind the white coats working on their brains or whatever. So thanks a lot. Those of you with BrainTap Nation, please stay tuned. If not each week, every other week, we're bringing you a business journal podcast, something to help you build your business. This is a key presentation. So if you know anyone out there in the industry that's a functional medicine practitioner that is out there that you feel could benefit from this message, please share this podcast with them. Let's get Majeed so busy that when I call him to do a webinar, he says, "Oh, I can do it, but it'll be 3 months from now." So let's fill him up because he's helping you get the word out. I can't stress it enough. Get out there, start speaking and talking. And Majeed, thank you again for being a guest on the Business Journal podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.